would look like if I pierced the whole piece. So now on the computer, I can just fill in all these petal shapes so where I'm actually leaving clay, and I can have all these designed on the computer before I even start piercing. So this is my version of the adult coloring books. Huh? Actually, Anne did it all on Photoshop. Yep. So she's kind of my go-to. She did all of these big designs and everything, and so you guys can see that, you know, I can play around with drawing, and so this will be the square. So I'll pass one of these around, and you can kind of see. I think this is a 15 by 80, so I know how many horizontal lines. There's 15 versus 80 vertical. So if I was to pierce the whole piece, that's what it would look like. So, huh? So these are the horizontal lines are the circles, and the vertical are the up and down. The horizontal lines are all done on the wheel. Yep. So I've even got to. This is where it even gets even. I have these where I take needles and I tape them down every half inch so I can just go. So they keep all, and I have each one that I want, because that's, I mean, I've played around with the vases where this is farther apart, so it looks like an accordion, like the pattern's stretched. It just doesn't appeal to me. So I'm so precise where, you know, this pattern up here is even stretched too far. It doesn't look like my work, that we had to go reprint another one. That's how I'm just. So these are just good, that's what my pieces look like. I have dreams about these designs, and sometimes they're not good.
Not good dreams?
They're all,
or designs?
They're just, I wake up and I'm like, oh, it ruined. I do keep a sketchbook next to my, because I come up with some of my best ideas at night. I'm like, that will work. And then when I wake up, it won't work. So, as you can see, I've actually taken the wheel. You know, the wheel can make everything round. It's what you do to it, alter it. So now I've taken this and broken it up into the square. So I've used the 20, 40, 60, 80 marks to get that square. Now I can pierce on the interior or the exterior. I've even, you know, this grid fits this piece. It's in the round. It goes with it. If I didn't want it in the round, I could just take this grid, clean it all up, and then do the vertical, horizontal, so it has nothing to do with the wheel's circular rotation. So there's a lot of different ideas and things you can do. You know, with those little small decals that I transferred onto the oval vase, I do put those on my pieces too and put clear crackle over them. So I do have that repetition of pattern. I didn't bring any on this, but I still use those patterns to create depth. So this is what it looks like before it gets pierced. Now it's just up to me, what do I want to pierce? Do I want to pierce the interior versus the exterior? I have an idea going in. I just don't pierce. It's like if you're going to throw something, you should know what you're going to throw before you throw it. Otherwise, your hand movement, the clay is going to tell you what you're going to make. It does. So, but yeah, I mean, I sit here and like I document everything. So I'm like, okay, how can I change that one? How can I make it more enhanced? How can I, you know, what can I do to these to make it more elaborate? And now I'm working on double bowls. So there's a bowl inside of a bowl that you'll be able to see through.
Oh.
So that's coming.
Cool.
So
I'm ready to peel off the
Go for
tissue
it.
paper here. So usually it's the best to wait until they totally dries, as far as the paper drying. And so then I just slowly peel off. And if I see any area that maybe didn't transfer super well, I can lay this back down and just give it a little bit of water and a dab with my finger, and it transfers pretty easily. So I just usually peel fairly slowly so I can make sure it all got on there. And then, there's always going to be a little bit of the residue still on this, but this is not usable anymore. No, there's not enough. It's pretty much everything is transferred, but the black is so strong that that's why you can see it quite a bit still on the tissue. Okay.
So when I'm cutting these, so right now you guys can, well, I'll just kind of go to the. So this piece is somewhat similar to what I would do on mine, but it's not. So I took these lines out because it would confuse you, but there's a line. And then each one of these has a line. So, I mean, it's confusing. I mean, it's extremely, basically it looks like that. So I have the vertical, and the reason why I keep those lines is I need to know how many vertical versus horizontal because I know which patterns will and won't work. I'm not one that I'm just going to start going and doing a pattern because if it doesn't work out, then I'm like, So
Well, it's a lot of time spent for it not to be.
It's all that math that I didn't. So basically,
So this is the
we have this
peeled.
box right here. And I go, so say there's a line in here. So we have a 2x2 square, or a rectangle in this case. I only pierce, so this mark, I only pierce 3/4 to 3/4 to 3/4 to 3/4. Because if I was to pierce the whole way, it would just fall apart. Okay? So that's why, I mean, it's kind of confusing looking at these, but, this is the part that's clay. And what I can do is if I have a vase, if I throw in a vase and it is 80 lines, so if I have 80 lines, so that's the vertical, if I have 80 lines around the whole piece, and then I have horizontal 30 lines, I can map out my whole design and have it two-dimensionally before it even gets transferred onto the form. So I can play around with that idea before. I like to know that idea. Yes, if the form is narrow at the top, the pattern's going to be smaller than what it would be halfway. So, but this is what I do when I'm in faculty meetings. And these are just more elaborate where I'm not, this is a big bowl. I think this is, for the circular lines, I only do about 15. I think this is around 30 to 45. So I can play around to making mine smaller to get this design that Meredith's working on and things like that. So these are my sketchbooks. My 2D skills are really bad, so I'd rather use technology. So,
Well, I can't draw or anything.
Stick figures are amazing.
Screen printing. And
So
your stick figures are amazing. Is that what you said? Nice.
Because that's probably when you have to demo how to do sgraffito on a cup or something. I'm just like, we're just going to use geometric shapes.
Oh yeah, that's what I do too.
I'll show you other people how to do it. But again, this is, I love doing stuff like this. I can play around with patterns and things like that. And this is, I can use dry erase markers now. But students get to see that I'm actually planning out my designs instead of just, because students don't think you actually plan out your designs. But I do. Everything's planned out. Everything has a reason. So.
I half plan, I'll say. I might pick a color combo theme, or I'd definitely say, okay, I'm like I did on the first one, I'm using the pinwheel pattern. But for me, part of the fun is putting something down and then reacting to it. So there are a few pieces that I have that are a little more formulaic, like certain forms where I'm like, okay, there's kind of a solid color at the bottom, and then I'll do some stray dots at the top. But like plates are always going to be, I guess, my favorite, in that I have this blank surface. And being flat, it's a little bit easier with the screen printing to really take advantage of the screen print. I don't know, yeah, I think plates are my favorite.
I would agree.
Are plates your favorite too?
It just gives me more option to do design work too, and that's why I think. But with Raku, plates are the hardest thing to get through the whole process.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that.
So, I fire. If you've seen how I fire my plates completely different. I build I have a piece of cardboard, then I put a bucket of sand down on the cardboard, then I use a popcorn tin lid, and put that right in the middle with one sheet of newspaper. And then when I pull the piece out, blow on it, then I put that on that trash can, and then I do the water tins, like the watering for like feed buckets. I do a little one of those over it, then I do a bigger one over that, and I can get the best cracks. I used to put them in a trash can, like I have a 30-gallon trash can and a 20-gallon trash can. I would flip over the 20-gallon, so the bottom of the trash can, I can just set it in there, but it just cools too fast. And I don't want that peach color. So I do all my bowls and all my plates are done in, I call it a sandbox. Just a man-made sandbox. I just pour sand on the ground. Sand's the best insulation. And then the vases are all done just with several trash cans. Because there's little tricks you can do. Like if you were to put stannous chloride over the white, it'd pearl it to make it opalescence. Silver nitrate over white crackle turns it gold. But those are all light sensitive hazard chemicals. But I would say ceramics is all hazardous. What's the what? That is a white pebble. So that's a low fire Amoco white pebble. No, one good thing about the white pebble is, so like if you put your hand over those, it actually adheres. It's a white pebble, but the white pebble glaze, if you don't use it within a week, it dries out and it becomes flaky. So they have a piece out there that's just falling off. So when I order the white, when Ann sends me the white pebble, she sends me the little small ones, and one of those will do 2 pieces, but I don't have to waste a pint because I throw a lot away, and I've ruined a lot of pieces for that flaky, that glaze. But it's a pain. It's a pain in the butt to paint on. It's one of those glazes you paint it on, and if you touch it, it falls right off.
Ooh.
It suggests that you put wax over it, but it can be fired to cone 10. It can be fired all over. So, but it's put on extremely thick. You can put velvet underglaze under it, and then when it beads up, that underglaze will show. Yep. So, right now I've been playing around. I have some new glazes that have lead in them.
Don't use it.
I love it.
I know you do.
I love it. I have a red glaze that is, you'll never find this red. It's beautiful.
As much as I love red and orange, I can't go there.
When I first did Raku, there's a Spectrum made this beautiful red glaze that had lead in it. So lead glazes have kind of went away the last 6-7 years. I mean, there was some that still had lead in it, just like the Christmas red was beautiful for low fire. And I wanted the recipe so bad. I called Spectrum, and they're like, no, it has lead in it. I'm like, I don't care. I'm a Raku artist. That doesn't work.
You mean it doesn't work? They won't tell you still? Oh, okay.
I was like, but this is what I'm doing with it. They're like, nah. But there's so many, like Gary Martin was my instructor, and there's so many ceramic instructors that have so much chemicals that you shouldn't have in a school setting. So when Dave came up to do a work, he came up to fix a kiln. I showed him my chem lab, and he's just like, "Oh, you're not supposed to." I'm like, I don't know abbreviations and stuff. I don't even know what's like that PC22 or.
There was a script that you had that isn't being made anymore.
What's it good for?
Stop.
I have lead.
There were 2 things.
But there are ceramic companies that will send you leaded glazes still. They're just a pain. So if you do follow me on Instagram, that bright red one with the gold decals on it, that's the lead red, which is...
I really like red underglaze. There's no lead in that.
I always tell my dad, like, if I'm gonna die, please just cremate me and then sit back out with like lawn chairs and watch the flames, because there's gonna be so many chemicals. I'm like, ooh, there's the copper.
Hey, go out in style.
I mean, at least, throw me in a glaze, but that would be a crazy glaze with all the chemicals I have in me. I teach completely different than I teach safe, but when I'm by myself, I think I know who you're talking. Oh yeah, there's, I don't know.
East Fork. I don't think they do red, but
No.
I know what you're talking about.
There's just so many reds now that you can, you can use mason stains like the goose stains, and which is cost. How bad do you want this red? You can pay for it, because some of those stains are.
I used to use
expensive.
Degussa red stain.
And you get like a little bit for $60.
I don't know what the price point is these days.
So
I used to use quite a bit of red glaze.
basically, I'm the artist. If I want something, I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to go off a commercial. Like Meredith, she wants a color, she'll mix two colors together, even if they don't make it. So,
Yeah.
Or
if I don't necessarily like the pre-made color. So here, actually, that leads into exactly what I'm doing right now. So the baby blue, I think, is kind of like a royal baby blue. I think I have a test tile of it. And so, maybe I don't. Oh yeah, I do. So this is the baby blue fired, and I think it's a little dark for baby blue. Or maybe my preference is just more of like an icy blue. So I add a lot of white to it, and this is my glacier baby blue, I guess.
Yeah,
Iceberg blue.
there's baby blue on that blue one on the interior rim. That's how I use the baby blue that comes out.
Wait, the second one in?
There's baby blue right.
Oh, I was not looking at the right one.
Right there.
Oh,
So
well,
that's-
this is it at cone 6. Lots of difference.
07.
Ah. So yeah, I add a lot of white, which is what I mixed in here, just a small amount of it. I use a ton of white for mixing. I also use white on its own as well, which I'll probably do on a different piece. And I call it the ghost layer, because it's really subtle. Ooh, I didn't show you guys what I did here. I'm adding some smaller polka dots around the flowers. So I'm going to do the iceberg blue. Take a quick photo. Documentation.
Before you start piercing, do you lay out that complete design? Maybe you mark it on your platter first?
Yep, I know where all the lines are marked and everything, yep.
You have that one marked, or you just?
Yeah, no, there's little marks on every one that I know which ones, how to do it in every. Yep.
I know some people came in later, and I have said some things about underglaze and applying it already, but if there are any things that, like, what's going on, feel free to ask a question, because I won't repeat it unless I guess I'm asked. That's the hard part about the coming and going type of workshop.
Have you been to the warehouse?
What?
Amoco, Indianapolis?
Yeah, I did go to Amoco a couple years ago.
Amazing.
It is amazing to see all the underglaze being made. It's in Indianapolis.
Outside of Indianapolis, I think it's on the west side. It's beautiful. It's awesome.
It's cool.
It's definitely a whole day's tour. They show you how all these wheels are made, and then if you love mason stains, they have tubs and tubs and tubs of mason stains. But it's all a good, and they have they have like a gallery inside of their offices are around a gallery of all the people that use Amico and stuff, so it's kind of neat.
Put a little hash mark there where you want to cut.
Well, I'm just cutting, so I'm cutting from here,
Oops.
so these little 3/4 of the line. So
Okay.
that will get,
That's a little hash mark.
well, I can just in my head I know I'm going 3/4 to 3/4.
I think this one is ready to peel as far as the pink dots go. I'm going to hold off on that inside part. It's still a little wet, and I think it needs another coat.
So when you send pieces to a show, how do you come up with titles
For the pieces or the show?
for the pieces?
I usually name things based on the pattern that I used. So this one would be ... doily, platter, or something like that. Because this is the doily print. Maybe it would be pierced doily.
Do you do commission work where they're like, I want this exactly like this?
Well, the commission work that I do is mostly pick which pattern that I normally would use, like what pattern do you like and which color combo do you like. I don't make totally randomly different things than what I normally would. I just can abide by certain colors that you like or a certain pattern or print that you. And sometimes I've done like a dinnerware set where maybe it was just the color that unified everything, but they had different patterns on it. Actually, I'll hold this up. So this paper stenciling part peeled much easier. I think it's because it's the porcelain clay body. There's a little bit here, but I can get that off. The other one on the raku body really stuck, the paper did, around the side. So this just holds moisture differently than this clay. I'm going to go back and try to get all that little paper remnants off. It would be fine to fire it at this point, and that would just burn out, but I'm going to put more layers on there, so that would resist anything I did underneath. And this also needs one more layer of orange on the inside.
And thickness is another, like, I've had pieces where I've thrown them and get ready to pierce the foot, clear at the bottom, and I stick my X-Acto knife in there, and it's thicker than my X-Acto knife.
Ooh.
So I've actually pierced a couple pieces and pulled it off, and it was about that thick. I'm like, oh man. So I just pushed clay back in there, little balls of clay, pushed it back in there and retrimmed it. Otherwise, I get the grid marks down, and I just use knives. There's a whole bunch of different, I use that tool. I feel like I'm a dentist. My favorite tool is not in here. It's probably, but it has a little scallop that I can go in there and cut, and it sticks to the clay, so it pulls the whole big piece out. But I'm also one that if somebody looks at my work, it's, oh, look how thick it is. Reflective of the potter. So.
Well, don't you throw thick so that it can survive what you put it through? Or
I think some people just say that. I mean, like, I throw thick because I have a cat that rubs up against my pots and then tips them over. No.
I'm like, you don't have a cat.
I don't have a cat, but that's just like the kind of stories that people say, like, I have a thick bottom because, put sand in it if you're not going to, but, yeah. So it's.
Right, it holds heat.
I learned from Jim Romberg, one of Paul Stollner's last students with Raku. His are thick. He throws really thick, puts 2x4s in them, throws chunks of clay down and mason stains and rolls his pieces in there, pulls them out, and then these are beautiful cylinders, but they're a good inch and a half thick. But they keep the heat in for, like, reduces them. You can leave them in there for 4 hours before I am impatient. Like, I pull this out, like this piece around the corner that's for the magazine, I pull it out, I'm like, it's awesome, it's beautiful, and like I reduce it, 10 minutes later, I'm like, okay, let's take it off. But I usually wait 30 minutes before I take all of the trash cans off or the lids, and I don't clean with water. I do not clean with water. I get with a wire brush, I scrape all of the paper off, and I only use 2 sheets of paper when I raku. I put one on the under and then one on top, and that's all I need. I only need the carbon. So I don't need any flashing, I don't need anything like that. And then where the carbon, it gets really gold on the white crackle, I just use a torch and burn it off. And it makes your pieces a lot whiter than if you scrubbed them under a sink. So
You do that while the pot's still hot?
I do it while the pot's still hot because I don't want to reheat an area and this crack. Yep. Yes. We still have what? Oh yeah, there's videos. Yeah. You guys don't want to see that. Nothing the water doesn't do. The raku clay body is a breathing clay body, so it still absorbs. You're adding water to the clay body. It's still breathable. It's still, yeah. So the torch just burns it off and cleans it. Like I don't, if you're going to clean a raku piece, I suggest people wash them, maybe stick them under a sink once a year, or just use a feather duster. That's all. I just don't like water going into something that's still breathing, because if it absorbs under that clay or something or adheres under it, it can create bacteria, mold, or pop off. I know in grad school, I had a whole piece, I had all my pieces thrown, and then half of them had limestone in them.
Oh,
So there's lime popping off of all of my work. So if you ever have a little piece blow off and there's a little white center inside of that you see, limestone. So you'll find them by washing your pieces off to glaze, because that will absorb that water and just. So I've had that happen to some of my beautiful pieces. So, that's why I like to know where my clay comes from. I'd like to know that I know where Les has it. I know he knows I have a special type. He knows I'm picky. But it is, nobody wants to go through all the work that Meredith and I do and then have our clay body not work.
which happens sometimes.
Yeah, we've talked about it. We've both had issues, and we've talked. And that's one good thing about the ceramic community. We can call anybody we want. Like, how's this not work, or what's going on?
Right. What's
Because there's so
happening?
many variables that it's clay, dirt, one little wrong, Velvet underglazes can change in a different batch. Then they might add 1% more, and it's a completely different color. So that's what I'm finding out with Spectrum is I have a cobalt blue, and it's changing colors every time I use it.
For the most part, I've had all the velvets be, consistent color-wise.
And they do a lot of testing.
They do. This clay is really grabbing onto the paper.
This clay is really not letting me cut.
That's not my clay body.
This is not your clay body.
Just saying. But that other one was.
That was
I know
not so
that
bad.
the porcelain is frustrating you.
There are some artists that can pierce porcelain, though. One Erin Carpenter, she does nice, beautiful porcelain piercing, where she just fires them and leaves them white. They're beautiful, nicely done. There's a lot of people that are piercing these days.
Eric, can you each talk about your early days?
I don't even know if I've still mastered that.
Well, where'd you start?
Giving myself away. I think I was after undergrad. I did not learn to be a potter. I think I used all my undergrad money to buy a kiln and to buy a potter's wheel, and then I went to Mile High Clay, and I bought a clay body I didn't know, and it was just thrown in a garage where it's freezing. So I learned, in school you have everybody to talk to. Workshops you have everybody to talk to. When you're by yourself throwing pots, it can get kind of, the dog looks at you and kind of. So I did a lot of art. I went and traveled and looked at a lot of art fairs. And some of my mentors that I liked, they saw their pricing, and I'm like, well, you know, I'm comfortable selling my pieces where they're at. The price has never changed throughout my whole time. I don't think it ever will. I think they're, for what I charge, yes, they are expensive, but if you know Raku and know all that goes into it, because I've seen people copy my work and their prices are twice of what I do. So I'd rather have my pieces in somebody's house where they can, enjoy them instead of, I don't like, as I said, I don't display any of my work. It sits in my garage in boxes.
All alone in the garage.
But I mean, and I'm starting to get into galleries. So like the Phoenix Gallery here in Lawrence and the one downtown in the plaza, they're doing great. I mean, it's mostly ceramic base and stuff like that. But again, you know, my price difference, I might do better in the art fairs than in galleries. Just that's, you know, Kansas City Plaza is a great show. There's a lot of great shows around here. Wichita, Topeka, some great ones. But I am, as a teacher, I just don't want to travel. I don't have the van. I have all the pedestals. I have the indoor, outdoor tent. But it's just, I think I'll just stick to teaching for now.
And I'm like the total opposite. So I rely on the sale of my work, you know, like selling. So, well, one I talked about earlier, I have a commercial retail line, Folded Pigs, and that helps supplement some income. It's a totally different market, it's a different price point, it's a totally different process and product essentially. But when I first started, like say after undergrad, I wasn't necessarily selling anywhere. My experience had been selling through school with the school sales, and I went to Kansas City Art Institute. So there was this kind of established market that already was collecting like work from almost every semester. People were lining up, and so it was a little unrealistic, you know, experience thinking like, wow, this is how it's always going to be. I know now that it is not. But after undergrad, I went through this change in the work, thinking, okay, I think I'm making some technically well-made work, and it's based on more like classical historic forms, but it doesn't really have my personality attached to it, like whatsoever. And so I did a residency at RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, in the School for American Crafts, and I was like a post-bac, they called it a ceramic residency. But the 2 years that I was there, I got to develop a new body of work without the pressure of selling, you know. And so my goal at the time was to bring my personality into my pots. And at the time I was doing cone 10 reduction from undergrad, so the like baby step switch was to cone 10 oxidation, you know. I don't change it up too much, but then I started using mason stains instead of oxides to get a different color palette. And then I happened to be in a cone 6 friendly environment. And because at the time, if you had said, oh, you're gonna just fire an electric kiln, I was like, pfft, I fire gas kilns, you know?
I think everybody's that way though, until you like, how much does a gas kiln cost? You're like, okay, electric kiln.
Well, yeah, there's that too. I mean, at the time I that wasn't a concern because wasn't thinking to the future. But it was the color that I wanted to get, the brighter colors. And I really love porcelain, so still being able to use this type of clay body, but getting these like more saturated gumball colors versus like a pastel palette, which I was getting at cone 10. And because at the time, not that many people did the cone 6, it's, you know, great, huge now and awesome. So to have it be like a supportive environment for that, who knows what I would have done if I hadn't been there, but that opened up to using really bright colors and using mason stains, and then I started using black underglaze in conjunction with colored glazes. And from there, I was applying to residencies, you know, hoping whatever the next step will be, where will my next studio be? And I applied to the Clay Studio in Philadelphia. They have a residency there. And I did not get into the residency, but I did get an invitation to be a part of their holiday sale. So it was this weird thing that happened where like I applied for something and then something else came out of it. And a few things like that have happened to me throughout my career, but that was kind of a key pivotal moment for selling work, because the clay studio does sell a lot of pots. A lot of pots leave their gallery, and a lot of other galleries look to see who they're carrying. So it was this pretty awesome foot into the door, you know, like, here I am, you know. So from that, I also started to apply to shows. Like I felt, you know, a little more connected to the work and like good about putting it out there. Like, yes, this is me doing this. And from that work that developed at RIT, it continued to develop. I did a residency at Watershed Ceramic Art Center in Maine. And from there, you know, applying to shows, selling work out of shows. Like you know, nothing was crazy consistent yet. And then I had about 4 or 5 years between undergrad and grad. So each year kind of moving around to different residencies wherever I could have a studio space. And then you know, applying to grad school. And basically just putting the work out there. Trying to put the best work out there that I was making at the time. If there was a really nice piece, I could hang on to that to apply to a show with. And then after grad school, then I really tried to, you know, do the gallery thing. Like, okay, I'm sending out a lot of work, trying to, you know, like 2 or 3 galleries a month. Like, okay, here's more work, here's more work, here's more work. And, you know, the checks are slowly rolling in. And then I happened to be awarded, which was awesome, and it was very exciting to be an emerging artist for NCECA. It was 2011. It was the Tampa conference. And from that point, and there was a magazine article also with Ceramics Monthly emerging. So that like culmination, I felt like put me a little bit more on radar, you know? So that the year 2011, 2012, I was sending a ton of work out and then just waiting for the checks. Like, please let them come back. And I feel like I'm kicking ass. Like, I'm sending a lot of stuff out. This is great. But then when I did my taxes, I realized, maybe this isn't as good as I thought. Because I wasn't really calculating throughout the year. I'm like, well, I'm paying my bills. That's all that really matters. And then, so I still, my gallery presence to me is really important still, but now I'm a little more choosy about who has the work because sometimes it just doesn't work out. It's not a right fit. So I'm trying to get back work or say, the ones that are selling, like send more to them. And then I, because I'm full-time in the studio, like, okay, I need to survive, so I need some direct sales also. So within the last couple years, I've started to do the local art fairs in Kansas City, or applying, trying to do them. So like Brookside, Prairie Village, the Plaza, places that I'm not having to travel, and because that's a lot of expense, for lodging as well as driving and taking the time away from the studio. So local so far has been really great because I feel like as far as nationally, like I had my work out there, but not so much locally. So I tried to bring it closer to home. And just to have people have an awareness that I exist here in in Kansas City. And I have had people now like, hey, I have a wedding I have to go to, and I would like to get a piece. They saw me before and didn't buy anything, but things are slowly rolling in because of that exposure, which is really great. And then, so I haven't ventured to the traveling art fair thing yet. I don't know. I'm really pretty practical about things, so it feels like really risky to spend that much up front. I don't know. The business stuff is always a challenge, but try to be practical about how to market. And then also online shop-wise, I have had my Folded Pigs Etsy shop since 2007, so when Etsy was a newer kind of thing. And that shop is way easier to maintain than like a one-of-a-kind piece shop because I can recreate those pieces exactly because it's just blanks that I'm decaling. So it's really easy. It's not one of a kind at all. I'm just like relist, or I have 5 of those available. But with, one of a kind pieces, there's images for everything, different descriptions, different sizes, different weights. And I feel like I should be amazing at Etsy because my whole other business is Etsy based. But when it came to my work on Etsy, it was really challenging. And because I also was overcommitting, or maybe not overcommitting, but committing to a lot of galleries and shows, it was hard for me to feel like I could set some things aside and be like, no, these I'm putting in the shop. So it was basically I'm just shipping out to galleries. So last year I changed the way I worked a little bit, so where I'm like, I really need work to stay at my studio for a little bit longer, either for art fair presence, like to actually have a mass of work, because that's important to fill the booth, and then to put some aside for holiday. I finally got things up on my Etsy shop, and it went really well, and I marketed it through Instagram essentially, and that was it, and just said, here's the sale, it's starting this day, and I think I had a free shipping for the first few days or whatever. And it went like really well. I'm like, you know what? I just need to dedicate more time to that. And that was literally 1 month ago that I finally got my act together. So it's been a slow learning process on how to market and sell. As far as like applying to shows, like there was a time period where I was applying to a lot of them, and then slowly then started getting invites to shows. And so now I'm happy to say that I'm invited mostly to shows, so that I don't have to do that application process anymore. But every once in a while there might be a show that a place that I think would be kind of a cool place to show at, or I know they have a sales gallery, so maybe if I apply, it puts me on their radar, ulterior motives. And for the most part, it's worked out pretty well that way. I don't know. It is, it's called Folded Pigs Dinnerware, and it is restaurant wear, so it's all basically pre-made blanks that I use. They're glazed and everything. And then I have set designs of, they're like more of an anatomical, like vintage medical drawing theme. Like I'll say I have like an anatomical heart that looks like a vintage medical drawing, and it'll say, eat your heart out. So it's like a different market for sure than my studio artwork. And that's why I do distinguish between the two. Sometimes people will think, oh, I love your artwork with the brains and the cockroaches. And I'm like, well, that's actually the other line. But I realize it's hard to distinguish. So I have 2 different business cards. I don't mind that people know that I make Folded Pigs. It's Folded Pigs by Meredith Host. So I have a separate website, separate business card for that. I also have made the conscious decision to not sell them in the same place, just for confusion. So like a ceramic gallery is like, oh, actually, we really like that other line too. Would you consider sending some of that along with your artwork? I said, no. I think that I just draw a line like, no, I think that needs to be separated. And at first, the balance between the two was really difficult. Like, how do I spend? I prefer to be making my work, but right now, I'm making money off of Folded Pig stuff. So now I'm at the point where I've streamlined Folded Pigs so much that I can spend more time on my work, and I don't have to spend as much time on the Folded Pig stuff, but still, revenue still comes in with it. So that's been the last 7.5, 8 years of figuring all that out and how to balance my time in studio practice. Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking more like kind of into that, like, so since you have businesses, is that like 2 different things like taxes or?
I still file as a sole proprietor. So yeah, it's just one. For my personal records, I separated out so I know how much came in from, say, Meredith Host's work. I know how much came in from Folded Pigs. I know how much was workshop/teaching, just so that I can kind of see, how it went over the year. Like if I didn't have the workshop thing, where would I have been, also the art fair sales. Like, so I kind of split it up just so I can see what is working. And it changes every year. That's the thing. I don't know. It's never the same.
And I mean, nothing against, but a lot of places don't want to show raku. They just don't want to show raku work. So, and if it's raku work and it costs that much. So that's something that I feel like I get faced with, is do I keep on pushing raku because I love it, or is it time for me, where do I want to see myself in the next 5 years and stuff like that? Is it time for me to change to go to porcelain and start piercing where it could be functional if needed to, or how can I make it that way? Or do I just keep on doing what I love to do and push through raku? Because there's, raku was pretty popular, then it faded away. Now, like chinos are pretty popular and it faded away. But there's still some great artists that are still using all of these methods. We just don't hear about them as much. So, go ahead.
Have you heard of Jennifer McCurdy?
Yep.
Fantastic ears.
Yep.
Most significant I've seen.
It is. I think Anne was thinking about bringing her in for a workshop
Ooh.
here. But she does, beautiful pierced carved work. And I think, I've never been to it, but I think she fires them upside down, so the gravity pulls them down and makes them alter. You guys have probably all seen her work. She's very, very beautiful work. Jennifer McCurdy. Yeah, she throws porcelain and pierces, and it's elaborate, way more elaborate than mine. Like it's neat.
I don't know if you guys can see this, but I did put the turquoise blue dots all along in the pierced area. It's subtle, but it'll be more bold in the firing. Huh?
I used to do that.
It's made for it right there.
And it's right where that X is too, so it hides that little line.
Yeah, there was a bullseye on every single one for me, just to.
And what I do is, to get, I don't do a lot of that work before mine. So in the BIS stage, I have a diamond sand pad that I go back and sand all my pieces, so all these little sharp cuts are smooth and
Like
everything.
under here.
So I go back because I have to, I probably get in trouble for touching artwork I'm not supposed to touch, but I have to touch.
It's hard not to as a maker. I feel like.
Is the diamond sand with the brick?
Yeah, it's just you can buy them. They have little diamonds, sand, and I scrub them off. I got mine at Ensika, but I think you get them like at Menards or Home Depot or something like that. But
Are they like this thick?
Yep. But they
What do they
can
look
sand. They can sand greenware, bisque, glazeware.
Pads.
I mean, they can take your glaze right off. Yep.
Yeah.
So
I bought some of those on Amazon.
we use a lot of stuff that people don't know about, and then once people find out that we're using them, and they jack the prices up.
So what you're saying, I'm not supposed to say anything?
No. So as you guys can see on this one, I have a diamond piercing on one, I have a brick piercing on another, and now I'm trying to do the triangle piercing. So you can kind of see the 3 different variations of what I do. And you can see how the triangle piercing is, if I mess up just a little bit, I mean, that has a closer clay, thinness than it does on my other piercing. So I just thought I would show you guys the different variations. And like I said, when I dry my pieces, I put everything on paper, on newspaper. I love newspaper, just because it absorbs the water and dries with it. So if my pieces are drying and shrinking, the paper is shrinking with it. If I put it on a board, it will stick to that board and it won't. So that's helped me prevent a lot. And Meredith gave me a great tip on when I throw my large platters, I use those Hydra bats with the plaster bats you can put on top because the plaster will help from cracking.
I love the Hydra bats.
So if you're not familiar with them, it's a little bat
So I throw.
that I can put on. I can put this to my wheel, and these have different pins. So this is for the smaller little bats I can throw cups on, so they don't take up a lot of room. But they are plaster, so if you ding them and break them. But they do have all various sizes out here. But they even have a bigger one that, helps prevent cracking for the large platters. But I mean, compression's another main thing you have to do for those.
Well, and you don't have to cut anything off of the wheel. So, you know, when the wire just like jumps up and half your plate's gone, you don't have to worry about that anymore. I just draw, like I carve under the foot just a tiny bit with a needle tool, and then I just set it to the side. Yeah.
Like
gosh.
here's
They're
one.
I think I had no regrets ever switching over to the Hydrobat. It's a combination plaster and hydrocal, so they're actually stronger than a plaster bat and a little more lightweight than some of them. And so I started throwing plates on them and basically stopped having any of the issues that I would ever have with plates, like cracking or, you know, the unevenness because of the wire. And the thing is, they will pop off when they're ready. There's no like guessing, like, you know, it's just, it will pop off or it won't pop off. And then you can flip it and trim. So I got, that's a little bit of a bigger size. I think it's a 12.5 is my dinner plate size that I use. And then I like them so much. Like, you know, I started out with 1 or 2 of them, and then now I have 10 for that size, so I could do like a whole dinnerware set, you know, at one sitting. And then I switched to getting the not the super small ones, but like an 8-inch, and that's why I throw all my cups and bowls and things on. I love them.
Oh, I
Love them. That's the adapter.
The adapter.
For the smaller ones.
Yeah, they make.
For the smaller ones,
Yeah,
those
like-
will fit on top of that plastic.
I'll go get us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the bats, say they're only like 8 inches, you know, they're little bat pinholes are like here. So then your normal wheels are here. So you got that adapter to then put the other one on. So there's a little bit of a system.
So here's the.
Oh yeah, that's bigger than the one I use,
But this is the one I use
smaller,
for cups
excuse
and
me.
stuff. So taking this compared to a 12-inch bat, I can save a lot more room. And yet, I'm sorry, I don't throw cups and cut them off and throw them on the side.
I don't do that either. I don't like messing with them. I'm not good at that. Yeah, and you can just flip it. As soon as it pops, you then know that you can flip it and get ready for trimming. I like it. So I slowly started collecting a bunch of Hydrobats when I had a little bit of extra funds that I could get some studio tools. I'm like, ooh, more Hydrobats.
Well, when you throw big platters too, you're trying to wrap the wire around and trying to pull it through.
For big platters,
And then your
There's
wire
no other
goes
way,
up,
as far as I'm
you know,
concerned.
and then but then like I've bled. I mean this. So, but I mean.
I swear by them. Love them.
Yep. But what do we do next?
What are we doing next?
I don't know. Yeah, it's 2 o'clock.
It's 2.
Yeah, I still need to pierce
I still
that
have
at
one more to start.
Well, you're like flying through those.
I'm not done
I still
though.
need to
They're not-
pierce that one.
That's the thing with me. I usually like to put so many layers that I could stop there, but
Make sure you get the raccoon ones done.
that's what I was thinking. Because I can always take the porcelain. Well, I would finish the porcelain ones anyway, right?
Yep.
See? Well, I was
And this is just like a 5-hour go. If this works out, we can plan it even more to.
that's true.
I
I don't
think-
know, this raku clay
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
giving me problems. That porcelain's giving you problems.
So I'm going to. Like, we're not going to keep this one. I just
We're not
wanna-
keeping it?
No. Like we can always. This has so many different patterns on it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So and then another one I've done is I've done where on each crossing I've done like the drill bit for holes. I don't use a drill. Actually, I just use the bit and push it through because the vibration makes the holes uneven. So I use that quite a bit. I actually just push.
Oh, you don't manually?
No, I just push it through. And then I go back after those and I do the dots of slip like you're doing. So there's a raised surface versus, but then people, I mean, some of the stuff people say, like when you're at art fairs, is just, you've heard it once, like, oh, it's an advanced strainer. Yeah, it is.
Oh,
And then you'll get the people like, oh, you
I
didn't,
take it all. I just
you
like-
didn't use an X-Acto knife to cut that. Like you cut it with a laser. I'm like, how does a laser cut? It would have to cut through the rack side, and I'm like, no, it's using an
Like they don't
X-Acto.
believe you?
No. I did the Plaza show, and one of my pieces fell out, so it broke. So I had the shards here to show people, like, this is how thick they are. Don't pick them up, because when people do not understand how to pick up pottery, not everybody. Some people go up and pick up my vases just from the top. I mean, they're still. So one of the artists like next to me is like this, and it broke and broke and broke and broke and broke. So I just have these shards that I was letting people look, and by the end of after the first hour, all the shards were gone.
They pocketed them?
People stole the pieces that broke. And I think a year later, I found them in a mosaic table. Like somebody did a table and had
Really?
my pieces in them. So I mean, hey.
That's crazy.
Yeah. About and if my pieces don't sell in 2 years, I donate them to Habitat for Humanity, other hospitals, so they can auction them off for a special cause. To me, it's just, if nothing, there's a reason it hasn't sold in 2 years, and it pushes me to create more. Because I know how much inventory I have in my garage. I'm like, I'll do 2 shows. But it pushes me to do more, and it pushes me, as a ceramic artist, as a teacher, I don't teach raku. We don't have a facility to do raku. So I'm teaching functional, I'm teaching all of that stuff. So it pushes me that way. And lately I've been doing community projects. So I did a community cup project where it's Voices for Children, where we made, I would say to this date, we made 3,500 cups. And Amico sent out velvet underglazes and teacher series palette glazes. And I've sent them to schools, like low-income schools, and they get to decorate them. And then we've had these wooden houses that we display them in. And sometimes when you pick them up, the voice of the kid would start talking. So I used to,
Really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's cool.
So I traveled around and did that for a year. Meredith donated cups to it. So we've had some professional artists that actually have donated with these kids' cups, and I've traveled around. It was only supposed to be in Nebraska, but it's went in Iowa, it's went all over. So just selling $20 cups, we're up to, I think it's like $10,000. So
That's great.
that's good with the community projects, which I love. It gets kids involved. And thankful for that. Meredith and other artists, Sunshine Cobb and stuff, have donated. So, throw or pierce?
You're up for a vote?
Double wall. Yeah.
How long do we have? We don't have that.
Let me shut that off with that comment. I still want to try to do the transfer.
Yeah. We still have.
I know. Is there anything you want to see besides the double? I don't have time to do the double pot.
I want to see that closer.
You can come up and see it. This is all the line work, and you can. And what's funny is when I pierce, my fingernails dig into the clay, so that's all my fingerprints. So I'll set this one aside for people to look at. Yeah, then I can push it through. So.
So do you
Back it up.
weigh a little bit after you kind of put the
I pierce the whole piece, and then if I have to really get special tools to get it out, they're not ready.
So do you rip your lines off with the
It's a rubber rib, and then I go with the sponge. Go back over all the sponge.
Forgot I'm gonna do something.
Edge it down. And I do that before Meredith even does that, because now I can't go back over any of those, because if she's on the top, if she does all that, it'll just take it away.
Wait, what are you doing? What are you saying?
Once I pierce that, I went back over with the sponge and flatten some of them.
Oh, I see.
So, because now if it's too late, I'm like, no, I'm not going to touch those with that.
You could wax over this and then.
I don't. There's a good question on Instagram yesterday. A girl started to pierce, and she wants to know how to keep them from cracking. Depending on the size of piercing you're doing. So I do small piercings. These are 80 lines to get smaller diamonds. They're actually structurally stronger than if I did a 40 line where they're clay body and all that stuff. If you're carving porcelain, I would suggest using wax, because wax will make your piece dry and then sort of, especially if you have these delicate handles. A lot of people put wax on handles, because if your handles, it's gonna dry the first thing. I try to stay away from wax.
I don't use wax.
I don't like the smell, like when you're in the kiln and it's just burning off. But you have to do what works for you. This is what works for me.
Ooh.
Just wait till I put luster over lead.
Oh boy.
An oil slick.
It's like one of these times someone's just gonna blow up, and I'm like, I forgot to do that. I don't do the scientific. Like, what would happen if these two things met?
So I'm not understanding, we can't teach Raku because we don't have the resources.
The facility.
It's a different kind of record.
I'm off on it. So Doane College has, well, you've been there.
Mm-hmm.
Our ceramic department's on the second floor. All of our kilns are on the second floor. We have a third floor.
No outside space?
No, we don't even have to exit. So just before break, just before about 2 weeks ago, I blew the door off of our baby gas bill.
What?
So I was told it's about 900 degrees. The city shut the power off. And then turned the power back on. All that gas was going into that kiln. So I think we might be getting like a kiln pad now. And like a whole.
You're like, see what can happen?
Well, I sent them pictures and everything. It's just, money and budget. And if you've ever been to Dover, it's like how money are landscaping, it's all like. So it's a hidden gem. Here's what we're gonna dress in a towel. You're gonna do like this in the creek. We're gonna hop over hills. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hidden gem. I like it. So I've been there for 7 years now.
There was this one little triangle here that wasn't pierced, so I thought, oh, I better add something in there. So there's a couple. Oh, well, it wasn't pierced in this triangle, and I'm like, oh, well, I have to decorate that. Yeah, for a little extra. So I almost forgot about it, but luckily realized it.
Meredith, where did you get the tracing paper that you traced that from? You said you ordered it online, or you
Wait, which, this?
took the pattern? Yeah.
This stuff. The underglaze tissue transfers I had made while I was in Jingdezhen, China. So I have no idea how to order it, to be totally honest, other than being there and having a translator. But there are, ceramic supply stores around the country that sell the ones that are made in China with it's usually blue and white, and there's lots of different patterns. They're super fun to play around with. And the sheet isn't that expensive in the grand scheme of things. And then there's also a new company that's stateside. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's like Isla or Isla Transfers, ISLA. And they make these things. But they have more of a contemporary sort of design and different colors that you can get. And they're very new, like as of the last year or two. I haven't tried this stuff yet, but I hear good things. So, and I hear they also are going to be they may already do custom transfers. So, I mean, it's a cool, easy way to transfer imagery. I mean, it would have to be, I think, high contrast, black and white. I don't think you're going to get a gray tone unless you have kind of a stippling sort of type thing. And that's the same issue I have with the Thermofax, is that it really has to be a high contrast image or pattern or, whatever. But because gray tones do not read.
It is an underglaze on tissue paper.
Yes, that is what it is. I know some people who have taken clothes pattern material, that basically tissue paper, and ironed that stuff out and then screen printed onto that. and then transferred with that, and it seems like a real pain. And it's sometimes it works. There's also screen printing onto newsprint, and then with underglaze, and then transferring like a slip transfer. So coating and slip on this side, and then ribbing so that it transfers onto the clay. But this is just, you can go directly onto the clay. You don't have to have the slip in between. That was a sigh. So what are you making?
I don't know. When I was like 25, I don't throw 25 pounds. But what I usually do, I just throw it back on the ground
Oh, that's smart.
and just throw it, hold it up in the bag, and just pull it out and throw it. Because like you waste all the energy just spreading.
Yeah, wedging might be my least favorite thing. Really?
So all those are hand painted. That's all how I like hand painted with a brush. I glazed the interior so that the depth is taking that glaze inside some of those before. Things like that. What should I throw?
I don't know. What do you need for your demo tomorrow in Wichita?
I think I'll throw some tonight. I'll drive up there tonight and throw.
Yeah.
Somebody said a
So-
cowboy hat one time. I'm like,
A cowboy hat?
I did it.
Like a chip and dip? Where the with the cowboy.
I did the flare and lowered it down.
I say that because I saw
Over and it was the cowboy hat.
I saw it in an antique mall one time. It was a slip cast chip and dip that was a cowboy hat, and the hat part had the dip for the salsa, and then the brim. Oh, chip and dip. No, oh my God, that would be funny.
I don't know how to make that.
No, they definitely don't. So how was piercing that casting slip? It was okay?
Yeah.
All right. It looked like you did it just fine.
Yeah. I think next time if I try it again,
Uh-huh.
or hey, let me take that piece.
Yeah, you can take it. Sure.
I'll take the second one. I'll do the paper transfer. I'll leave the paper on so I know where my pattern's at.
Ah,
Through the paper.
that's a good idea.
I'll throw a large platter. Because I do platters a little different.
You're not on a Hydrobat.
I know, and I gotta take this back too.
I'm going to put a little bit of a pattern, well, basically just a polka dot field in the bottom of this bowl also. But I think I'm just going to use white, or maybe that light blue, the icy blue that I mixed up. That orange is not drying. Oh, I should mention, what, sorry? You were gonna say something? Yeah, I don't use the heat, that's what I was gonna say. I don't heat gun, I don't speed up the drying usually with my paper stencils because it dries the paper out so quickly that it actually creates a tattered edge there's a lot of little finicky things.
So if that's not a heat gun, what's it called? Oh, it's a heat gun.
Independent aisle.
Yeah, but I think you said I don't let my students use a heat gun.
Yeah, they have to use the hair dryer.
It gets really hot.
It works. They get really hot. I mean, they used to take paint off wall. I just don't want them sitting around.
You could burn your leg pretty good on that.
I've
it by the cord.
I have a studio in Alvia, Iowa. It's going to be cool. An hour southeast of Des Moines.
How much does how much will the stencil come through?
It,
Or transfer come through?
it should.
So you're going to use a different underglaze?
I'm gonna, well,
Or
Four kids.
turn that off, now it's back on. I just fire it to cone 6 and have it cool. I use the slow glaze set on my good old electric kiln.
So why, I know, I'm asking this question, but why code 6?
Oh, because, well, my clay body, but I can get the brighter colors at cone 6 versus cone 10. And I really enjoy using porcelain, so even though it's, a mid-range porcelain, that's how I can get my, more like gumball colors versus, I don't know, lighter palette or whatever. I want it bright. So cone 6. I typically use Laguna body that is 617. It's a cone 6 porcelain. And I've used it for many years and it's pretty good. It may not be the best one out there, but it works for me. I did try out a bunch of clay bodies a couple of years ago and I just went back to my original one. I thought, it's kind of, it's working. So, and nothing else thrilled me. And then as far as casting slip goes, it's a slightly different body. It's still a cone 6 porcelain. It's actually a cone 6 to 10 porcelain, but it is really vitrified at 6. I don't really want to have a punky clay body. You know, it is vitrified at 6, so that's good.
So is your dinnerware, do you cast it, or is it?
It's thrown out of that Laguna body.
Is that those decal ones?
Oh, the folded pigs. They are a cone 10, probably reduction fired porcelain that I buy. Yeah, they're already glazed and everything. So I don't spend time like making anything of that from scratch. It's just ready to go. I'm just decorating with decals, and they get refired in the kiln to like 015. It's a slightly higher fire decal firing because they're lead free, so they need a little extra time for melting.
Silly question, but what's that sponge you're using? I've not seen one like that.
Yeah. It's just a thin sponge. It's called a finishing sponge.
Oh,
I use a different one to throw stoneware, but sometimes doing porcelain, I just keep on using it.
Do you need this one?
No.
Okay, because I stole that from you.
Every artist has their favorite sponge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people use the sponges or the foam that's in the cone boxes that your cones are wrapped around. They throw with that.
Ah.
So they use those for sponges. Some people use makeup, like your makeup pad. They throw with those. But this is just a. There's not a wrong sponge. I mean, I guess I use the school sponges quite a bit. Like, if I'm wiping stuff off, I'm not going to use a good sponge because it'll just deteriorate it. But this is just a sponge that was given to me by Kevin. I said to try. I've just been using it ever since. People will give you tools to try. Just like if you go do workshops, like what tool is that? Like, I don't use it, but I love the mud tool. I'm a tool person, as you guys can see. But you guys did see me using it with raku. It's pretty. On the plate, I use this for the rim and the bowl, just so it's rounded. So I use this edge on all my pieces. If it's a flat, it's a sharp angle on the rim. So the rounded rims will help you save your pieces in raku. A big trick, big little trick. There's 2 different sizes, so I usually go from this one, and then as I stretch out more farther, I use the smaller one. But compressing the rim and rounding it will make a lot of cool process. Maybe I kind of went a little too thick on this piece.
Oh, you're regretting it?
It looks like. Well, I'm like, I don't think the kiln's big enough.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Right now am trying to get a size cut out that's going to fit from here to here so that I can complete. It's a little flower powery looking, but it'll be more subtle when it's fired, and that white just turns into a translucent layer. But yeah, I need to really measure. Sometimes when I'm matching up, that's the part that can be frustrating, to get it to actually look right.
What's your thoughts on Kirsten on doing your patterns on the pierce work?
Well, it's nice because there's this specific defined area that I feel like I can use. I'm scared to add moisture to the pierced area, but I want it to work. So I've been avoiding going on to that pierced area. But it would be cool to have, you know what, there's one left. So after I get this, and this is going to take forever to dry.
It doesn't work. I know where you work, you know where I work.
It's true. We can do over. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm almost there.
Watching online, great
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm just the only one talking. Everyone online, Eric is talking. He just is not mic'd. Ugh, you.
That's okay. I'll get all the bad reps. I could hardly hear him. And you'll be like,
And then it's just me laughing half the time because I'm listening to you. No one can hear me. Like, can I turn mine off too?
just like start pointing at each other. Like,
Oh.
like if you're throwing, like, if I throw like a large platter, what I usually do is I throw it in two parts. Where I throw the base, then I bring it up and have a little indentation. Then I throw an open cylinder like this, where I'll flip it over and put that down the indentation and throw that and lay it down. So that's how I throw like a large. If you ever want to do, I'm never going to do a large platter like this, but I don't have the skill to do it. And I don't know what, I mean, there's houses that could probably hold it, but, you know, a lot of the kilns that I use for giving food, I have a lot of old school kilns that work perfect.
How do you finish the edges that you put together?
Another artist that I really like recently is Peter Pincus.
Peter Pincus. I'll repeat that so that everyone online can hear. Eric really enjoys Peter Pincus's work, as do I.
And he's one that does molds and he brings colors in. And if you think I'm a perfectionist, he is. He's taken molding to a whole nother.
Is he at the? No, he's at RIT now, yes, but for NSECA, he's coming here.
So he's here for the free workshop with Linda Lopez and Miranda Barr. Those three great artists here for the Saturday, Sunday, or Friday, Saturday. You know what it is?
Pre-conference workshop, Saturday, Sunday.
I know the timing of that whole week got funny because we're, with the Art Center doing a ceramic symposium, David doing a big giant wood fire thing, talks, whatever. We're not stepping on each other's toes. So if people wanted to do all of them, we sort of could. So we scheduled it to work.
What talk is that in?
I can find out.
275, 275,
Something like that. I will find out real fast. But it's right in that
Yeah, my
Charge them all, and so it seems like he's put everything together.
been hearing about it for 3 years. It's crazy that it's almost upon us.
Next year it's Portland. So it travels. Portland was my first ever in Sika.
Oh, I went to that Portland in Sika, and it was the worst weather ever.
I got on a plane and I had track ribs. I was having a heart attack.
What?
So now I'm trying to lay this. So right now I have this base of clay and I have this wall. But if you think of this wall, this is the wall. It's pretty thick. It's about 1 inch thick. So when I lay the interior down, it has that inch thick of clay that I have to lay down. And if I don't take an undercut right here, it's just going to keep on making a hole. This clay's not going to build anywhere. So when I start laying this down, I take undercuts every once in a while, lay that down, take another undercut, lay it down, and things like that.
All right, I have the inside of this stenciled off now. And so then I'm just going to coat white underglaze in there.
It's like a ceramic exquisite corpse.
Yeah, it is. A ceramic exquisite corpse for the online people. Why I just said, yes, it is. Gosh.
They're out front watching.
Yeah.
I think my niece is probably just sitting in front of the computer watching.
They were really
probably
having
throwing stuff and just talking.
They were having a grin about her moving the wheel out from under you.
I'm just a guinea pig. I'm sorry. I'm a potter. Sorry my mic doesn't work.
Yeah.
I get that to work. That could be something like interesting. I mean, I could turn it on if you guys want to hear that background noise. But
We hear you just fine.
You should turn your mic back on, so I'm not the only one talking. Mic me.
We're just saying, like, keep that. Oh, your battery's done.
Your batteries? Oh,
Mic was on.
it was?
Yeah.
Is it on mute?
the light on?
There is a mute.
He is not looking at my phone.
And you're gonna translate?
I'm not going to say
And
anything.
I'm back.
Oh, yay, welcome back.
The reason why my mic was not on because it interferes with the wheel. And
Or the wheel interferes.
and I don't talk very much. Well, yeah, it stops it. Joking. The wheel interferes with the mic as far as the static and stuff. My first ever, one of my bowls I gave as my dad for undergrad is a big bowl, and I went back and it was a dog dish.
Uh-huh.
Like, we had 3 dogs that would eat out of it, and then like the little dog would sleep in it.
Really?
So I tried getting it back, and like the dog like growled. I was like, nope. And then everybody in my family has one of my Pierce pieces. I give everybody one, then they have to buy them.
You get one freebie.
One freebie.
Something to get you hooked. And then
And then, so
just a little something.
my dad and his wife, I come back and there's a plant inside of it.
Oh,
And
yeah?
It grew through all the holes and then broke the pot. And they wanted another one. I'm like, no. So I used to fire all my raku at my dad's house, and if I had a glaze run, I would throw it away. So I would come back the next time, and everything I threw in the dumpster was in the house. So now I break them.
It's a dumpster diver.
A lot of people are. I could say some other names, but I can't. Some people have my work because they dumpster dived.
Is he talking about you, Josh? No comment?
My students My students get my work, so if they're seniors and in the ceramics, I get one of their pieces and they get to pick any of mine.
That's cool.
But a lot of my students are like making naked ladies, so I have all these like naked lady figures
Really?
around my
That's a new,
my new collection.
uh-huh. Okay. One layer of the white.
So as you guys can see, I'm compressing and using a rim on the outside, and I'm slowly making my way outward.
I'm gonna start picking off the polka dots in the orange part. It's still a little wet, but I am
It's a workshop. Go for
anxious
it.
to just give it a go. When I pick off paper that's been totally encased in underglaze, I use an X-Acto blade, and I don't even bother with a handle anymore because I go through these pretty quickly. So I just hold onto it, and I go at a slight angle, or actually an angle that's pretty close to whatever the surface is, because I don't want to be jabbing down into the clay. And then I don't try for an edge. I go for the middle. Josh, you were asking about this, about picking off. So I intentionally do not try to find the edge, because that will just lead to stabbing in and messing up that clean, crisp edge that the paper can give. So I go for the middle, and I just try to get a little bit of the fiber in the paper. And that's where the copy paper is a good thing, because it does have that fibrous quality versus like a newsprint tends to break down a bunch more. So this holds up, and I just catch a little bit of it and then lift up, and it usually should just pop right off. I have not used coffee filters. I don't know how well they would punch. They're easy to punch? Well, maybe I'll give that a go. Oh, good, it's actually, this is the moment of truth. Will it work?
I use those. I use little circle stickers for like the insides of my squares, but when I put the glaze over it and I walk off, I forget where they're at. And you'd be surprised, stickers, when you fire them, they, like that sticky residue does not burn off.
Well, and I've forgotten a dot here or there, and it's not a good thing, actually. You'd think it would just burn out and be fine.
Nope.
But it actually, because it's encased in that underglaze, it creates this little pouch, and then there's ash inside the pouch, so you have to chisel it out, and then it's not a clean edge anymore. So it's fairly important for me to get all of them off before the firing.
I usually paint over them and then go back and then scratch where they're at, so I know where they're located. What am I making again?
A platter, you said? You can change your mind, though.
No, we're going. I don't even know if my big bat back there will hold this one. That's okay. There's easy ways to trim large platters.
So what keeps you two in the studio making?
You mean like motivation?
Money,
Deadlines?
money.
I do need to make some money, so I do need to make things to sell, because I don't have the teaching gig. Oh, this is foam. Weird. I was like, what am I touching here? I mean, I really love making, and so that's actually what keeps me, the passion. Like, I don't know what else I would do. This is my thing. This is what I love doing.
Yeah, I like teaching. Like, I love, where the school I'm at is my undergrad. So I currently teach at my alumni. And, with it being a small liberal arts school, there's not really opportunity to go further with an art degree, because we don't have we don't have a BFA. We just have a liberal arts degree. So coming from a grad school, and then going to a liberal arts school and knowing how it was taught and everything, it almost needs to be an intense. So Josh is a great example. Josh didn't touch clay till his junior year. So then he got a 2-year intense workshop. I made him stay over the summer and work with me just to get into grad school. And he got a full ride to grad school. So at Dome, we have so much based on our core that we can't really focus on art. And that's a big problem as far as the school setting. And there's other obstacles. Budget's another one. Some schools around where I teach at teach half a semester of hand building and half a semester of throwing. How can you master any of those when you're just getting, in high schools has to be the hardest to teach because some of you don't have clay, or if you do have a wheel, you have one wheel. And so kids, they want to do it, but then that means you have to stay after school and work with them or do lunch hours, which there's a lot of great teachers that do it, but then, it's hard to, teachers get asked to do so much. So it's hard. I usually make my work late at night. So I'll go to the school like at 3 o'clock in the morning and work till 8.
I like to sleep.
Then teach, and then after that time or I'll.
That's intense.
It's the only way. Summers work really good. So if you follow on Instagram, I post a lot in the summer because that's the only time I can make. But at the same time, that's almost too late because that's when all the art fairs are. And I think students push me too. They want to see what I'm doing. So my studio is the school studio. So I think if I'm in there working, more students will come in at night and work with me. And it's been pretty good. So that, but I raku somewhere else.
Yeah, where do you raku?
I raku in Albia, Iowa. So after grad school, it's all bisque. After this, I'll talk about that piece. It's all bisque, it's all glazed. So all I have to do is add the white texture glaze and then fire it. Oh yeah. Like I hardly ever travel with greenware. Well, I did 2 pieces here, just so I could get them done. Because there is, even though we've talked about this, it kind of in 2 weeks isn't a lot to actually it's a go. Hear what we're doing, because it was the holidays. Meredith has a big show going on in St. Louis. She had to deliver work. Luckily my school doesn't start till the 19th, so I could come down here and spend a week to throw these. So this is kind of like our will it work or will it not work? And if it does, how can we make it work? But collaborations are just to have 2 artists. There's a lot of collaborations that the artists don't even talk. Here's my work, now you make something for it, and then we put it together. And then there's a lot of that happens. Mm-hmm. Because you just got done writing an article about collaboration.
That is true. Yeah, in the recent Pottery Making Illustrated, it's the January-February issue, and Eric has an article also in it about making these. But I have me and my partner, Alex Watson. He's also a potter. We have been making a collaborative line as of last year. And so the article is about our process with making that. And we make very different pots, but we have a lot of influences that are similar. So we've kind of combined our love of certain things and came up with new designs completely. So it wasn't, say, like Eric throwing and then me decorating, or like Alex throwing and me decorating. We designed, different forms than what we typically would make, and then, I didn't decorate with my dot patterns. It was a whole nother set of patterns and new challenges working with, he works with terracotta, so we decided to do the low fire thing with slip and underglaze. So there's a lot of challenges that come with that too.
I think they came out beautiful. I love them.
I'm really excited about the work that we're making together. But it's that's also something that keeps me going, like a change of pace too.
Even as artists and teachers, and even though we do this, we still go to residencies and go do like other workshops just to get. It's a good break. So,
Yeah.
because Airmont just had the Pentacular where most of them are teachers or grad students, and so it's good for us just to break away from our normal.
Normal everyday practice.
Huh?
Yeah, get away from that. And then you come back refreshed. As of
What?
Monday, I have to
Go ahead.
get crazy busy making for Insika.
Monday.
Monday. I'm giving myself till Monday. And then it's
I'll-
full on production.
I have 2 more. I have Wichita workshop, and I have a workshop Wednesday, then I have a workshop Friday.
Whoa, you're busy. Okay. I can't clean this up anymore right now until this dries a little bit more. But here's the
I
inside.
like it.
Yeah. So I have to wait. It was still, I was pushing the boundaries of time.
If this collapses, it collapses. Yeah. I'm tired of heat guns.
Say that every time.
Sometimes
It's
it
his-
collapses though. Let's delete that. So this is one of my favorite ribs. They don't make it anymore, but Rockers has a big wooden one add about 6 more inches onto it. And I love them for laying down platters, plates, because the whole piece can hit this rim at one time. It compresses it. So that's why I like this. Is it hard to hold? I just put my finger in the hole and just push down as hard as I can. I use both sides. So when I'm laying down a piece, I usually use the arch side, and then when I'm almost done, then I flatten it. So the arch side will keep that shape to hold up this rim. Because if I just do the flat, if this rim's thick, it will just start weighing it down. And as you guys saw me throwing with my rib, I'm really just I don't add any water. So I'm just using the moisture from the clay and compressing it. I don't want water in it. So
Can I borrow this?
go for it. Does it
Uh-oh.
reach?
Is it tangled? It's wrapped around the chair. How did that happen? Sorry, microphone.
You're trying to break it.
No, I'm not. I'll hook it. It's still wrapped around your chair.
I almost want to use that big
Can you
wooden
lift up
one.
your chair for 1 second? I'm sorry. There we go. Got it.
Now, didn't you usually have
No, my wheel's on the ground. I'm not like. I mean, I admire people that stand up, throw standing up. I just couldn't do it. I love that. I just can't do it. And I don't teach it that way because I don't want half up, half down. But there's cinder blocks. I just, I'm gonna have back issues already, so I paid my chiropractor in pots.
I told myself that I would start standing
It does-
2016,
it
which
does
is now.
help. But you're like reteaching yourself how to throw again, though. Standing. It's like I don't know.
I understand.
Let me know how that goes.
Yeah, I'll keep you posted. Oh yeah, I've got a bunch of those in my studio, the rubber mats, because I have concrete floors and whew, it's tough on you. Maybe I'll get one of those even thicker ones for
Those
that.
new ones for like the kitchen that people stand on
Yeah.
and work. My grandma got one of those, and she's like, "What do I use this for?" And I was like, "I'll just take it."
She didn't use it? You just hijacked it.
She's an Avon lady, so she's always in her car.
She's sitting.
Huh?
She's just sitting,
She doesn't get
driving.
internet, so she can't see this. I'm liking this. I might have to pierce some of these sometime down the road.
So is that pressure or drag that you're using?
Drag, pretty much. Just the first round to just get that clay off. And now I'm going to add a little bit more pressure to it. This also helps it. Some artists, when they lay down plates, especially beginners, it will tear. Like it's too thin already, it'll just start tearing. My biggest thing is I love making these. I really dislike trimming them. Because I'm like, flip it over and then it, because I'm at that point where I want to, because I put a bat over and flip it like this. This won't have a bat big enough, so I'll have to throw a bat chuck for it. So I'll just throw a cylinder with a bottom and flip it over. That will adhere to the middle, and this will just hover off of it. So that's how I'll trim it.
All right, well, I zapped this enough with the heat gun that I was able to start cleaning it up a little bit more. And because if it was still a little wet on the inside and I start scraping, all of that will just stick into that design down there. And then it's even more of a mess.
I guess if the ladies are in there watching us, I'm like, Ann, I need the wooden tool. Bring it out.
For a second, I thought they were coming.
She comes with this big one. I'm like,
Yeah,
yes.
it worked.
We keep looking at the door to see if they're coming.
Yeah. Can I use the heat gun?
Yeah. Sorry, you can have it back.
So China, go again. Loved
Me?
it.
I loved it. It was challenging at times to be there because it's just so different. But overall, I had a great time. And my mind was blown every single day. We'll go to a different
culture.
factory and they're throwing vases that are 8 feet tall or slip casting 8-foot tall vases. Like, what? It's crazy. And I went with West Virginia University. They have a fall semester study abroad program, and I was their visiting artist for the semester. So I went with the student group, and then their main professor, Shoji, he would come. He was there in the beginning, the middle, and the end. And so I can't imagine flying back and forth that much in a 3-month period. But so then I was there to help facilitate the program while he was gone, and they have a pretty sweet setup in this area of Jingdezhen, China, and so that's the porcelain capital of the world. It's where most anything that you see that's ceramic that says made in China is probably from this city. And just going to see different studios, different factories, I mean, so things that I wouldn't think were possible in clay were happening easily, you know, just because of so many years of figuring everything out. I mean, the history is just so much more extensive in China. So I worked in a tile factory for a while, and I was decorating hand-rolled porcelain tiles that were 2 feet by 4 feet. And that was a small tile for this studio. And I mean, I just wouldn't be able to do that in my own studio space, let alone fire something like that. They're a quarter of an inch thick. They're huge. It was so fun.
You want me to go get a rig for you?
Huh?
Would you like me to go get the wood?
No.
You're over it. You don't need it yet.
Because then I want to buy it. I'd rather just go do workshops and not buy tools. What if I get 20% off on it if I use it?
Yeah, we all get like.
You guys, there's only 2 out there.
Well, fight for it.
Make a deal.
I mean, it's a tool. Go grab that. Go grab it.
Tell them the other one's mine. Tell them the other one's mine, 20% off.
Stand right in front of that computer when I'm using it.
Yeah, save your money.
Huh?
Let's
See, I saved
Save
you
your-
20%. Got you.
I know.
say in China there was really different ways of working. So to actually make your work from start to finish, like you doing each step, was kind of odd there. I mean, it was, because typically there's someone who specializes in one section, like one part of the process. So what I did while I was there, other than like, mess around with those tiles and things, I designed and drew out pieces. Actually, so some of those pieces I prototyped in China. The little bud vases that are closer to Eric over here, those I had produced in China. In that, someone made the prototype for me. The model man made the prototype out of plaster from a drawing with measurements that I had. And then I took it to the mold man, and he made the molds. And then these were cast here, but then when I would take to the caster man and say, I want 10 of these in a super white slip. And then the next day, I'd go and pick them up and bring them to this woman, Auntie Lee, and she would clean up all the mold lines and attach handles if there were handles. So she did the beginning stages of cleanup, and then I would cart them back to my studio, like wheel them down the road. And that's where I would use like the underglazed tissue transfers. I usually had to clean it up a little bit more. I mentioned that I'm very particular. So there was always a little bit more that had to be done. And then I would decorate, and it's all still greenware. Everything's once fired. So then when I was ready for glaze, I would get on my bike, ride down to the glaze store that was called Paint Town, and every single glaze that was there fit all the clay bodies in the city. So there wasn't any, guessing like, oh, well, it might. I don't know if that's going to work or not. It was going to work. It's just they were all formulated. So you say I want that one, and a bottle, like, as much as okay, and then I would have to take a picture of the sample and the bottle because I couldn't read anything, and then get back to the studio, and I would call up the glaze man, and then he would come and glaze the stuff for me because it was all sprayed because of it being greenware. So you're glazing bone dry pieces essentially, and then I would clean up, make sure that nothing was on the feet or anything like that. And then I would cart them down to the public kiln. So we didn't have our own kiln. There were 3 different public kilns that we had access to that were like within walking distance. So wheel your cart down with all your glazeware, and then you start vying for space in a kiln, and it's all cone 10, 11 reduction firing. And so there were names for each of the kilns, like there's the Mick Jagger kiln, there was the lady kiln, there was the Mao kiln, and the cow kiln. Yeah, the cow kiln. I can't, because it used to, I think that where the kiln was, it used to be a factory that produced statues of cows or something like that. Anyway, so then it was dubbed the cow kiln. Anyway, so then you would like decide, I would always say, I want the middle or the top. I decided that the bottom was not working for the work I was making. So to try to convey that, like, by kind of sign language almost. And then, the kiln master got used to where you wanted your work. And then this whole big gas cart kiln would be pushed in at 5 p.m. And then by 9:30 a.m., the work is out. It's not, you can't touch it, it's super hot. But by 10:30, you can start grabbing your work. And that's the point where you pay the kiln master. He says this is how much it was. And because it's a public kiln, you're responsible if your work destroys anyone else's. So as far as it being like a once fire situation, it better be dry. Because if you had a piece blow up and it affected someone else's work, you had to pay for their work also. So there was, at least there's some accountability. Like, you gotta make sure this is gonna be okay.
I need to write that in the course syllabus for my classes. Yeah. So
It was really interesting to not have my hands on every single part of the process and act more of a designer. And then I was still the decorator, but I don't know, it was kind of nice. Because, you know, I said before that my passion really at this point is the decorating, the surface part. So to just have the blanks show up and be ready to just decorate was awesome. And, you know, I think it really changed my ideas about production and what's possible, and I don't know. I remember thinking, I have to go back and do everything myself. You know, and so you're paying for each little part of the process, and near the end, I'm like, I have no idea how much money I have spent. And I added it up, and I was like, whoa, that was more than I thought. You know, so it wasn't necessarily, I don't know. I don't think I could afford to do that all the time, but it was really cool to experience that type of process, kind of farming out each little part to someone who is a master at that one thing. I think the Model Man was probably the most expensive.
You gotta keep those and bring them back.
Yeah, I have all my prototypes and molds, and then the prototypes I can make new molds off of if.
Do you know if you can sculpt onto a cast piece?
You can if the clay body is, you know, more compatible. So if you attach with slip too, and I think a lot of things are possible. I don't know. It depends on the clay body. Some is forgiving and some is not. With my casting slip, no, I don't think you'd be able to.
This is clay.
Or you could go with that. It's just clay. Give it a go.
Well, it's like the students, like they throw a piece and it's the best piece they've ever thrown. I'll go over and cut it in half,
Oh, you're mean.
just so we can examine it. I did it to Josh. He's still alive.
And you're still alive.
Yeah. But it's just, I mean, it's, students are afraid of failure. I mean, they're afraid, like, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, I kept everything. My mom has everything. I have a little creamer that can hold a 50-pound door, and it's about 3 inches. I mean, my plates were a solid slab with a little pinch of a rim, and it's just a solid slab of clay with this little rim. And I still go and see them, and I'm just, ah. And you can't even throw them away because they don't break. But it's, I mean, it's just in the past, I mean, I'll go through and look, and like every year I look at my work and has it changed? If it has changed, is that good? Or if it hasn't changed, why hasn't it changed? Is teaching taken away from my own body of work? If so, am I okay with that? You know, and being chair of an art department, I mean, there's even more. I am not one. I do not like computers. I don't want to be around a computer. Like, this is my computer. So I just don't. I don't do emails. I don't. But
You do, though.
As chair, I have to. But it's gonna be good. Sabbatical is gonna be great.
And that's next year?
A year from now. What am I doing? That's a good question. I want to do some I'm going to apply to Red Star, Red Lodge in Montana, and the Archie Bray. But by doing that, I cannot apply to do raku, because they're not going to allow me to raku out of their kilns. So it's going to push me as an artist to come up with something completely different, which is going to be great. You know, and doesn't mean that I'm going to change my whole work completely after that. No, it's going to give me a good break of playing around with different chemicals and stuff like that, which I'm excited for. And I don't have any students that are graduating that. And Josh will do a great job of teaching them. But it's just time to go. I mean, that's why I live in Lincoln, but I'm in Kansas City. I should just live here. I drive
You're
here
here
so
a
much.
lot.
And I know I need to get one of those passes so I don't have to pay like $1.75 every time I come. But yeah, but I mean, I come down to Kansas City 'cause Lincoln's great. Omaha has the Kaneko and the Bemis, and then Lincoln has the Lux. and everything like that's great. But Kansas City, like there's an art scene. It's a fun art scene, the art environment. Even with Lawrence, you know, it's a fun little town to do it in. So I'm up here quite a bit. That's what vehicles are for. My vehicle I got in March with 5 miles, and now I have 30,000 miles on it.
You do?
Yeah,
It's a lot.
it's a lot of travel. So, but like people are like, what do I do for a hobby? This is what I do for a hobby, or play golf.
All right, I cleaned up, for the most part, all the paper on the inside here and sharpened up the edge where it starts and finishes. So I think this one is complete for this side. There's still this side. But that will probably be another time.
Are you taking those two back? Those two porcelain ones?
I think, yeah, I don't know how to do the raku thing.
I'll take those.
You'll take
or
those.
If the raccoons are done, we'll just leave them here, and I'll have them bisque. So when I raku fire, I bisque. What do you bisque to? 0.4?
Yep.
And then when I raku fire, I cannot bisque to 0.4 because that will seal the clay body, so it won't accept smoke. So I always bisque to 0.8. But don't bisque everything to 0.8, especially like on low fire earthenware, because the glazes do some funky things. So bisque 0.4, it's not raku. It's raku. I do 0.8. Then I raku to 0.7. And it takes about 5 hours to fire, depending on the kiln, 4 hours. So, do it. Oh yeah. You want to take this home and design it?
Sure. Is
Go
it,
for it.
It's the raku clay?
Yeah. So this is the tape I use. Headline. This is 1/16 inch. This is 1/8 inch. I don't know what they have out front. I know they have one of either the other. So like in between this, I had the 1/8 inch tape in the middle, and then I did the 1/16 inch around it. And this piece is done. So what I'll do now is just glaze it. And then when I'm done completely glazing, I'll pull the tape off. And where the tape is will be all these little black lines that outline. So this has the 1/8 around it. So I put. Okay, sounds great. So this is what a piece looks like when I'm. So I have days where I'll just design this. And I'll still go back and design the back. So I'm going to do some stuff down here. But this is basically, and my designs, my taping are based off of my piercing. So I do have my designs and piercings already planned before I do it. So even though on these grids, you can only see the piercing pattern, on a computer, I can go back in there and do the stuff if I want to. And I also with this, I'll take pencils and go in here and say like, hey, this is white crackle, this is white pebble. So I'm pre-glazing before I even, because I've done it before where I've done like, oh, I should have done it backwards. So a lot goes into it. And if I have, this section versus this section versus this, I have 4 different sections. How can I break them up so they don't, and what colors do I use? And I like it because it's a different piece every time you turn it. So I am symmetrical, but I am also asymmetrical, so I love that you can turn it. So, but the tape, I love the tape. If you get the tape, I get it at Mr. Art. I think that's where they get it, at Mr. Art. If you get it at Staples or Home Office Max, it's a different tape that you put it on, and you'll get this all done. You'll come back the next day, and it's all off. So don't try to, after I get them taped, I try to glaze them within a month. Because if you no, within a month, because if I leave that tape on there, when I try to pull it off, the glue residues already adhere to it, so the top comes off but the bottom still stays. And I've tried rakuing it off and it doesn't work. I'm shutting this off now.
Well, then I guess we can at least say goodbye to the online. Yes. Signing off.
Am I on? Yeah.
You're
So.
on now. Signing off.
Thank you for all you that joined us today
Yes, thank
online,
you.
and everybody here. Thanks for the questions. We'll be here cleaning up because we have
I made a mess.
some areas of cleaning up.
Totally typical.
So if you have questions that you didn't want to ask out loud, just come up and ask us. Do we need to? We could. I mean, if do you have business cards? I didn't bring.
I have some business cards, and
I
I
might not
also
have
a
my
bunch
card.
of work over there. Take a
Okay.
look.
Yep.
But
And if
yeah,
you want, we might
cards.
write our just look at our names up for Instagram. That's an easy way of contacting us too.
Mm-hmm.
But
Thank you.
I hope it was fun.
Thank you.